Season 2 of live action One Piece is finally upon us, and I can't speak for everyone else, but my experience of this was extremely whelming. Don't get me wrong, I liked it, but I didn't love it like when I saw the first season for the first time. But honestly, it's not the fault of the series. Mostly. Allow me to illuminate you, dear viewer. When I saw the first season for the first time, it was my introduction to anything One Piece. The only reason I watched it was through word of mouth, and even then I was a bit hesitant with all the, the fact that I was watching it at all was kind of a minor miracle. But when I started to actually watch it, I fell in love with it. And like many others, as soon as I was done with that first series, I dipped my toe into the anime. To be fair, it actually took me a couple of months to begin the 1000 plus episodes, and it was kind of a bit overwhelming for me, to say the least. Everyone who was pushing me to watch it had already seen the whole thing. It was pretty much injected into their bloodstream for the past few decades. Till one day I just thought, and I think it was a Thursday, I just ripped up that Band-Aid and started watching it. I think it was at the end of Alabasta that I took a break for about a week or so and then grinded through Skypiea. Not my favourite arc, but that's another video for another day. Also, saying I don't like Skypiea is kind of the same as asking what's my least favourite orgasm. There isn't really any answer to that, but it's also the fact that by no means am I saying it's bad. Just in the grand scheme of things, not my favourite. And then after that, I think it took me about another week or two before I got back into it again. And when I got past Skypiea, I took another week or so off and then didn't stop until I got to the beginning of Egghead. Not that I wanted to, I just can't take anything in when everything's subtitles and the English dub hadn't caught up by then. And yes, this was also despite the pacing issues in Dressrosa. Fast forward to today, I'm eagerly waiting for the Elbath arc in the anime to begin. Especially as well, the Elbath arc itself couldn't wait and just decided to impose itself on Egghead. Spoilers. Which actually leads me on to my first point regarding the title of this video. It's never going to live up to the source material. When I say that, I don't just mean the original manga, I mean the anime as well. 1000 episodes doesn't just mean an extremely long story, but it's also an extremely complex one. It's very intentional and well thought out. It is, after all, someone's life's work. It's also earned the trust and the patience of its fan base. So when you get to a flashback that lasts about 6 months, especially when it's a weekly release, the fans may get a little bit frustrated with it but are willing to wait, as Oda usually rewards them with a satisfying payoff. It usually also ends up being a nice little bit of lore that the fan base can just dig their teeth into. So when it comes to the live action, it's a bigger issue with a 6 to 10 episode model. If you think you're going to get anywhere near the same experience, you're just kidding yourself. It's like when a book is adapted into a movie. There is usually a lot that never gets to the final cut, unless you're going to make that movie like, a week long or something. For example, I would have loved to see Usopp's journey in Logtown as he tries to win his new goggle apparatus from the little girl in learning about his father. That said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Sanji's side quest, but even then there would have been fans that would love to see that. You're not going to please everyone, but maybe one episode more in Logtown? And this is the thing, if you did include everything, you may as well just watch the anime or read the manga. And that's a good segue to my second point. When you take stuff out, you need to be careful of what you put back in. When you take out the storylines of Usopp's journey or Sanji's competition to win the big fish, you've got to be careful with what you replace that with. To highlight this, I'm going to give you 3 instances of what I'm talking about. And this is the appearance of Bartolomeo, the flashback with Brook, and also the flashback with Gold Roger. Now, the one thing they all have in common is that they appear much later in the franchise, and if you only have the experience of the One Piece live action, you won't have any frame of reference. If you are up to date with all the latest chapters in the manga and or the anime, it can either come across as, okay, I really like the way you portrayed this, and I guess that was a risk, but I like it. Or you might get my first reaction, which was, I guess it's one of those things where by trying to please everyone, you don't please anyone. So, let's say we get Dressrosa in the live action. We've already met Bartolomeo, thus ruining the switcheroo that he's a Straw Hat fanboy. That said, is it really a big deal? After a couple of nights of sleeping on it, I guess not, but it's in a significant amount of the episode where you could have used that to flesh out Usopp and Sanji more. The same could be said for the Gold Roger flashback. Does it affect the actual story of the live action? No, but we haven't met Ace yet, and if you know what happens later on in the franchise, it hits better when it's more relevant being shown around the time it's meant to be. Yes, okay, we do meet Ace in Season 3 in Alabasta, and I guess the argument can be made that it's a nice piece of foreshadowing, but the target new audience isn't going to know what the hell is going on, and it does come across for being used just for retention and look at that purposes. Which leads me to Brooke. And before I get into this, yes, I do agree, in of itself, the Laboon flashback was an awesome scene. Not only if you're only just getting into One Piece, but I do also appreciate it as a long-term viewer too. However, this is also a symptom of the fact that the live action isn't going to be showing everything from the source material. The original flashback was intended to be shown as Brooke's backstory, and this became an absolute gut punch when we learned that it was his crew that Laboon was waiting for, while at the same time we're giving the audience a huge glimpse into Brooke's motivations. I really feel that flashback should have been part of Brooke's story and not Laboon's. And also for me, Luffy singing Binks' Brew, originally Binks' Sake, was a bit out of place as the song was actually a massive part of Brooke's backstory and it gave us one of the most beautifully heartbreaking episodes in the entire franchise. To give that to Luffy, I feel, takes away from that. Again, let me stress, this doesn't affect the live action story, but at that point I just feel that things like this are just being shoehorned in to get a little bit more retention, and I don't think that's good. Separately, why did we get this and not this? And before we get to the next bit, I also need to kind of shout out Dory and Broggy. Thank God they got the last right. But again, it's one of those, does it really affect the story for Broggy to be put down? Not really, but it didn't need to happen. So moving along, let's go to point C, or I don't know, 3. This is not the same show as the anime or the manga. The biggest issue I feel is that we have a melting pot of elements that work against the show, and it isn't necessarily the show's fault. It's kind of an imitation of something much greater. It has all the same characters, at least by name, and the spirit is there, but at the same time, it's a different show. Obviously, outside of the fact that it's live action, the music is different, except we hear "We Are" once or twice, but that's about it. The characters act different, the accents are different, and it's just kind of the same, but it isn't. The simple reality is also the fact that you're not going to get a lot of the moments to build characters due to the writer's room trying to cram everything in. It's also unfortunate that all of the episodes got released all at once, so you don't have that experience of the weekly release, thus being able to enjoy it with your friends. There's also got to be something to be said for watching an episode weekly, rewatching it so you know it back to front by the time you see the next one. Assuming you like the episode, that is. That way you can just take your time with it and absorb everything. Trust me, thank God my wife has just started watching the anime with me, because there's a ton of stuff that I missed the first time round because I just wanted to get caught up with the people that have been watching it for decades. It's also not known at this point, at least by the audience, where the live action is going to finish. I guess there's a few jumping off points that I can think of, but not really knowing that might be a factor in the way that the live action is told. Which leads me to some hard truths. Again, this is not the same show. I'm not going to get everything I want from the anime. Another sad fact is that the actors will age beyond what the anime depicts. Keep in mind that, outside of certain time skips, the One Piece anime and the manga took a year to depict a battle that took place over a single night in Wano, and the franchise to date, in universe, happened over months, not years. Again, not counted in certain time skips. Yes, One Piece has a huge and loyal fan base, but they also want to bring others in, which means they'll need to be producing something with retention in mind. I guess a good way of looking at it is that the live action is a taste for people and a way to entice them to get into the anime and manga, but it shouldn't necessarily be considered the beginning, the middle, or the end of the whole experience. And if all you do is watch the live action, and that's cool too. It is, of course, the greatest story ever told. How you experience that is up to you. I just personally feel that if you don't experience the story as it was intended, you're kind of losing out, but that's my thought. So, is the live action cursed? Not necessarily, but unless something in society snaps back, this is just a new reality now. It just works differently. And as soon as and I guess we can accept that, it makes it a lot easier to enjoy this for what it is. But at least there's a choice of how you want to enjoy the franchise. And enjoy it you will. That said, there is one question that needs to be asked here. Would you like mayo with that?